The UES horizon cut through the darkness of space like a knife, its sleek metal hull reflecting distant starlight as it patrolled the neutral zone between human and Volari territory. Captain Mira Thorne stood on the bridge, her weathered face illuminated by the soft blue glow of the tactical display. 15 years of commanding starships had etched permanent lines around her eyes, some from squinting at threat assessments, others from the rare smiles she permitted herself in victory. "Status report," she said, her voice steady but tense. The neutral zone had been quiet for months, too quiet for Thorne's comfort. First Officer Liam Reeves looked up from his console, his dark eyes reflecting the tactical displays. "All systems nominal, Captain. We're maintaining course along the established patrol route. No unusual activity detected in the sector." Reeves had served under Thorne for 3 years now, a tactical genius with a remarkable ability to anticipate enemy movements. He had earned his place as her right hand, but beneath his disciplined exterior lay a simmering intensity that Thorne had learned to both value and monitor. "Communications?" Thorne asked, turning to the youngest member of her bridge crew. Ensign Rook Silva looked up from her station, brushing a strand of dark hair from her face. "All channels clear, Captain. Regular update from New Valorum colony received on schedule. They report..." She paused, frowning at her display. "Wait, I'm picking up something unusual on subspace frequencies." Thorne moved to stand behind Silva's station. "Source?" "Uncertain. It's using an encrypted carrier wave I haven't seen before." Silva's fingers flew across her console. "It doesn't match any known human protocols." Dr. Anya Patel entered the bridge, her lab coat exchanged for the standard blue uniform of the science division. The xenobiologist had been studying Volari biological samples for years, becoming the fleet's foremost expert on their physiology and technology. "Captain, I've completed my analysis of the biological residue we found on that derelict mining station. I believe the Volari are..." A violent shudder ripped through the ship, cutting off Patel's words and throwing Thorne against the tactical station. Red alert klaxons blared as the lighting shifted to emergency mode. "Report!" Thorne shouted, pulling herself upright. "Multiple impacts. Port side!" Reeves called out, his hands dancing across the tactical display. "Shield integrity at 68% and falling. 5 Volari raiders decloaking off our port bow." "Evasive maneuvers," Thorne ordered, dropping into her command chair. "Weapons hot. Target the lead vessel." The horizon banked hard, narrowly avoiding another volley of bioplasma torpedoes. The view screen showed the distinctive organic-looking ships of the Volari, their hulls resembling massive, iridescent insect carapaces rather than manufactured metal. "They're jamming our communications," Silva reported, her voice admirably steady despite the chaos. "I can't get a signal to Fleet Command." "Keep trying," Thorne ordered. "Reeves, return fire. Target their propulsion systems." The horizon's pulse cannons fired, blue energy lancing out to strike the nearest Volari ship. The raider's carapace rippled, absorbing some of the energy, but the impact sent it spinning away from its attack vector. "Direct hit," Reeves reported, a grim satisfaction in his voice. "But minimal damage. Their bio-regenerative hulls are adapting to our weapons frequency." Another impact rocked the ship. Sparks cascaded from an auxiliary console as a crew member was thrown to the deck. "Shields at 42%, Reeves called out. "They're coordinating their attack patterns. This isn't a random raid. Captain, this is a planned ambush." Thorne gripped the arms of her command chair. "Engineering. Reroute emergency power to shields and weapons. Helm, set course for the Talon asteroid belt. We'll use the debris field for cover." "Captain," Silva called out, her voice tight with tension. "They're broadcasting on an open channel. I think they want us to hear this." "On speakers," Thorne ordered. The bridge filled with a sound that was halfway between speech and the chittering of insects, the distinctive communication style of the Volari collective. Then it shifted, processing through a translator into accented but clear English. Humanity has encroached too far, came the cold, multi-toned voice. Your exploration ends here. You chose war with humanity. Good luck surviving. Thorne's jaw tightened. Send a response. Tell them that this unprovoked attack constitutes an act of war under the Treaty of Proxima, and that the United Earth Council will respond accordingly. They're not listening, Captain, Silva replied. Channel closed from their end. Another hit rocked the ship, more violent than the previous ones. Emergency lights flickered throughout the bridge. Direct hit to our starboard engine nacelle, Reeves reported. We've lost 30% thrust capacity. Shields down to 26%. Thorne made a split-second decision. Tactical, arm quantum torpedoes. Target the lead vessel's command node. Captain, Patel interjected, moving to stand beside the command chair. A direct hit to their command node will kill their entire neural network. Thousands of Volari minds. They made their choice when they ambushed us in neutral space, Thorne replied, her voice hard. Fire when ready, Reeves. The horizon shuddered as it launched 2 quantum torpedoes. They streaked across space, their blue-white trails cutting through the darkness before striking the bulbous front section of the lead Volari ship. The explosion blossomed outward, the ship's carapace cracking like an eggshell as blue fire erupted from within. Direct hit, Reeves reported. Lead vessel is breaking apart. The other raiders are adjusting formation. Captain, Silva called out. I'm detecting a massive energy buildup in the remaining Volari ships. I think they're preparing some kind of retaliatory strike. Helm, maximum thrust toward the asteroid belt, Thorne ordered. Reeves, divert all available power to aft shields. The horizon lurched forward, its damaged engines straining as it accelerated away from the Volari formation. Behind them, the remaining raiders pulsed with an eerie green light, their bioorganic technology channeling energy for what could only be a devastating attack. They're firing! Reeves shouted. A massive wave of green energy erupted from the combined Volari ships, expanding outward like a tsunami of light. It overtook the horizon just as it reached the edge of the asteroid belt, washing over the ship's shields in a blinding flash. Every system on the bridge went dark for a terrifying moment before emergency power kicked in. Crew members picked themselves up from the floor as damage reports flooded in from all decks. Status report, Thorne demanded, wiping a trickle of blood from her forehead where it had struck the console. Shields completely down, Reeves replied, his voice tight with controlled panic. Main power at 40%. Weapon systems offline. Life support functioning on emergency protocols. The Volari? Thorne asked. Continuing their approach, but slowly. I think that combined attack drained their systems temporarily. Reeves looked up from his console. We have maybe 5 minutes before they're in range to finish us off. Thorne's mind raced through their limited options. Helm, take us deeper into the asteroid field. Use the largest bodies for cover. She turned to Patel. Doctor, you were about to tell me something about the Volari when we were attacked. What was it? Patel steadied herself against a console. The biological residue I analyzed shows evidence of genetic modification. They're adapting their own biology to create new weapons. But the process leaves them temporarily vulnerable to certain radiation frequencies. Which frequencies? Thorne asked, a plan beginning to form. Upper theta band radiation. Their neural networks are particularly sensitive to it during their adaptation phase. Thorne turned to Reeves. Can we modify our deflector array to emit a theta band pulse? Reeves considered for a moment. Yes, but it would require rerouting power from life support. We'd have about 10 minutes of air before systems fail. Do it, Thorne ordered, and prepare to overload the pulse. We'll only get one shot at this. As the crew worked frantically to modify the deflector array, the horizon weaved through the asteroid field, using the massive rocks for cover. On the view screen, the Volari ships could be seen hunting methodically, their organic sensors probing the debris field. Deflector modifications complete, Reeves reported. Theta band pulse ready on your command. Life support diverted. Atmospheric systems will begin degradation in 30 seconds. All hands. This is the captain. Thorne announced shipwide. Prepare for emergency atmospheric protocols. Oxygen masks on. The bridge crew quickly secured their emergency breathing apparatus as the air began to thin. Helm, on my mark. Take us out of cover directly toward the Volari formation, Thorne ordered. Reeves, be ready to fire the pulse at point-blank range. Captain, that's suicide, Silva protested. Our shields are down. We'll be completely exposed. Sometimes the only way to win is to be more willing to risk everything than your enemy, Thorne replied, securing her own oxygen mask. Execute maneuver on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. The horizon burst from behind a massive asteroid, engines flaring as it charged directly at the surprised Volari formation. The bioorganic ships began to respond, their weapon systems powering up, but not fast enough. Fire Theta Pulse, Thorne commanded. The deflector dish at the front of the horizon glowed brilliant white before releasing a massive pulse of invisible radiation. It washed over the Volari ships, which immediately began to convulse, their organic hulls rippling and contorting as if in pain. Direct hit, Reeves reported, triumph in his voice despite the thinning air. Their systems are destabilizing, neural networks going offline. On the view screen, the Volari ships drifted lifelessly, their green bioluminescence flickering and dying. Helm, get us out of here, Thorne ordered. Maximum speed to New Valorum colony. We need to warn them of what's happened. As the damaged horizon limped away from the asteroid field, leaving the disabled Volari ships behind, Thorne knew that this was only the beginning. The Volari ultimatum had been clear. They had chosen war with humanity, and now humanity would have to fight for its survival. New Valorum glittered like a jewel against the velvet backdrop of space, its orbital platforms and defense stations forming a protective ring around the terraformed world below. In the 3 weeks since the Horizon's encounter with the Volari raiders, the colony had been transformed from a thriving outpost of human expansion into a fortress preparing for war. Captain Thorne stood in the colony's central command center, her uniform crisp despite the exhaustion evident in her eyes. The holographic display before her showed the disposition of Earth's defensive fleet, pitifully small compared to the vast territory it needed to protect. The Volari have gone silent, she said to the assembled colonial leadership. No raids, no communications, no movement along the border for nearly 2 weeks. Governor Marcus Way, the civilian administrator of New Valorum, frowned. Should we take that as a good sign? No, Thorne replied bluntly. Based on what we know of their tactics, they're gathering their forces for a major offensive. The question is, where they'll strike first. And you believe it will be here, Way said. Not a question, but a statement. New Valorum is our most developed frontier colony, and it sits at a strategic crossroads. Taking it would give them control of 3 major jump points back to Earth-controlled space. Thorne gestured to the star map. Plus, we've detected unusual subspace distortions in the Gravis Nebula, consistent with large-scale Volari fleet movements. Dr. Anya Patel stepped forward, her tablet displaying complex biological readouts. There's more. My analysis of the disabled Volari ships indicates they're developing a new form of bioweapon, something designed specifically to target human physiology. What kind of weapon? Asked Colonel Jada Harrison, commander of the colony's ground forces. A neurological agent that attacks the autonomous nervous system, Patel explained. It would cause a painful death as victims lose control of basic bodily functions, breathing, heartbeat, even cell metabolism. A grim silence fell over the room. Can you develop a countermeasure? Thorne asked. Patel hesitated. Possibly, but I would need more data on the complete bioagent. The samples we recovered were incomplete. Thorne turned to the tactical display. Then, we need to acquire that data, Intelligence reports indicate the Volari have established a research outpost on Obsidian Reach, an asteroid base in the Ceres cluster. They're likely developing the bioweapon there. You're proposing a raid, First Officer Reeves said, stepping forward to study the tactical display. His eyes narrowed as he assessed the defenses surrounding Obsidian Reach. Not just a raid, Thorne replied. A rescue mission. We've received fragmentary distress signals indicating human captives are being held there. Likely colonists taken during earlier Volari incursions. They're being used as test subjects. Governor Way paled. My God. We can't wait for reinforcements from Earth, Thorne continued. By the time they arrive, those colonists will be dead, and the Volari will have perfected their weapon. The Horizon is still undergoing repairs, Reeves pointed out. She won't be combat ready for another week at minimum. We'll take the Defiant instead, Thorne said, referring to the colony's defense cruiser. Smaller, faster, and already equipped with the latest stealth systems. We can slip past their outer defenses, extract the prisoners, and collect the bioweapon data Dr. Patel needs. Colonel Harrison crossed her arms. This operation falls under military jurisdiction. I should lead the ground team. With respect, Colonel, you're needed here to prepare the colony's defenses, Thorne countered. I've led extraction operations before. I'll take a small team, Reeves, Dr. Patel, and a squad of your best security personnel. Harrison didn't look happy, but she nodded reluctantly. I'll select the team personally. There's one more thing, Ensign Silva said, stepping forward from her position near the communications array. I've been analyzing the Volari transmission patterns we recorded during the ambush. There are embedded data streams. I believe they're using a new form of quantum entanglement to coordinate their hive mind across vast distances. Can we disrupt it? Thorne asked. Possibly, Silva replied. But I'll need direct access to one of their communication nodes to understand the pattern fully. Thorne nodded. Then you're coming with us, Ensign. Your expertise could give us a critical advantage. Governor Way looked troubled. Captain, I must remind you that I have final authority over colonial assets, including the Defiant. This mission you're proposing, it's a major escalation. If you fail, the Volari will see it as confirmation that we're the aggressors. Governor, Thorne said, her voice quiet but intense. They ambushed my ship in neutral territory and declared war on our species. They're experimenting on human captives to perfect a bioweapon that could kill billions. The time for diplomatic niceties is over. She gestured to the star map, where the vast territory of the Volari Collective glowed an ominous red. The Volari don't think like we do. They're a hive mind. Individual Volari are just cells in a larger organism. Their evolution trained them to see other sentient species as either threats to be eliminated or resources to be harvested. We can't negotiate with them because they don't recognize our right to exist. We still looked unconvinced. There must be another way. If there is, we'll find it, Thorne assured him. But right now, those colonists are suffering and dying while we debate. Every day we wait. The Volari grow stronger, and we grow weaker. After a long moment, Way nodded reluctantly. Very well, Captain. The Defiant is yours. But promise me you'll attempt to minimize casualties, even Volari ones. If we descend to their level of ruthlessness, we risk losing what makes us human. Thorne's expression remained impassive, but something flickered in her eyes, a moment of doubt, quickly suppressed. I'll do what's necessary to protect our people, Governor. Nothing more. Nothing less. As the meeting dispersed, Reeves followed Thorne into the corridor. The governor's concerned about the moral high ground, he said quietly. But you and I both know this isn't going to be a clean operation. Thorne stopped, turning to face her first officer. The Volari declared this war. Reeves, not us. But I intend to make sure we're the ones who survive it. She paused, studying his face. I need to know you can handle what's coming. This won't be like our previous engagements. A shadow passed over Reeves's face. The Volari slaughtered my family on Proxima 4. Captain, I've been preparing for this war my entire career. Thorne nodded, concern mixing with approval. Just remember, vengeance can cloud judgment, and we'll need clear heads if we're going to pull this off. Understood, Captain, Reeves replied, his voice steady, despite the emotion Thorne could see burning behind his eyes. When do we depart? 24 hours, Thorne said. Tell the team to get whatever rest they can. Once we leave for Obsidian Reach, there won't be any turning back. The Defiant dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Ceres cluster. Its stealth systems engaged to mask its energy signature from Volari sensors. Captain Thorne stood on the compact bridge, watching as the asteroid field that contained Obsidian Reach came into view on the main display. Status report, she ordered quietly, though the Volari couldn't possibly hear them at this distance. Stealth systems functioning at optimal levels, Reeves reported from the tactical station. No indication that we've been detected. Long-range scans show minimal patrol activity around the outer perimeter, Silva added from her communications console. But there's heavy security around the central asteroid, Obsidian Reach itself. Thorne studied the tactical display. Obsidian Reach was a massive, irregularly shaped asteroid, nearly 20 kilometers long, its surface pockmarked with craters and artificial structures. The Volari had hollowed out much of its interior, creating a Warren-like complex of research facilities and detention areas. Life signs? Thorne asked. Dr. Patel looked up from her scanner. Difficult to get an accurate reading through the asteroid's mineral composition, but I'm detecting approximately 300 Volari signatures and, yes, there are human biosigns as well. At least 40, clustered in what appears to be a detention level near the center of the facility. Any indication they've detected our scans? Thorne asked. Negative, Reeves replied. Their attention appears to be focused inward. Something's happening inside the facility. I'm detecting unusual energy fluctuations. They're proceeding with their experiments, Patel said grimly. We need to move quickly. Thorne nodded. Helm, take us in. Use the smaller asteroids for cover. Reeves, prepare the strike team. As the Defiant silently approached Obsidian Reach, Thorne briefed the 12-person strike team in the ship's small cargo bay, which had been converted into a makeshift briefing room. The team consisted of 8 security personnel from New Valorum, along with Thorne, Reeves, Patel, and Silva. Our mission has 3 objectives, Thorne explained, gesturing to the holographic display of the asteroid base. Primary, extract the human captives. Secondary, secure data on the Volari bioweapon program. Tertiary, plant Silva's disruptor device at their communications hub to sabotage their hive mind coordination. She highlighted different sections of the base. We'll divide into 3 teams. Reeves will lead the primary rescue team. Dr. Patel and I will secure the research data. Silva, you'll go with Sergeant Torres to plant the disruptor. What kind of resistance should we expect? Torres asked, a veteran of previous skirmishes with Volari raiders. Heavy, but predictable, Thorne replied. The Volari operate on pre-programmed response patterns. Their individual warriors are formidable, but they lack tactical flexibility when their communication with the hive is disrupted. Which is why my disruptor is so important, Silva added. Once activated, it should create a localized dampening field that will isolate the Volari in the base from the broader hive mind. They'll be disoriented, less coordinated. Don't underestimate them, Reeves warned. Even isolated, they're incredibly dangerous. Their exoskeletons can stop standard pulse rifle fire, and their natural weapons are lethal. That's why you'll be using these, Thorne said, gesturing to a rack of specialized weapons. Modified theta radiation pulse rifles. Dr. Patel has adjusted the frequency to target weaknesses in Volari physiology. 1 direct hit should incapacitate them. 2 will kill. She looked around the assembled team, her expression grave. I won't lie to you. This mission is high risk. The Volari will fight to the death to protect their research and maintain control of their prisoners. But every human life we save, every piece of data we secure, brings us one step closer to surviving this war. The team nodded solemnly, their faces reflecting a mixture of determination and apprehension. One final note, Thorne added. We have authorization to use lethal force, but remember that every Volari we encounter is essentially a drone, an extension of their hive consciousness. The true enemy is the collective intelligence that controls them. Keep that in mind when making tactical decisions. As the briefing concluded, Dr. Patel approached Thorne privately. Captain, there's something you should know before we embark on this mission. She lowered her voice. I've been analyzing the Volari biological samples more thoroughly. Their neural structure suggests a more complex consciousness than we previously believed. Meaning, Thorne asked. Meaning they might not be simple drones. Each Volari may retain some degree of individual awareness, even while connected to the hive mind. Patel's eyes reflected her ethical conflict. If that's true, then killing them isn't just destroying biological extensions of a collective. It's killing beings with individual consciousness. Thorne was silent for a moment, absorbing this information. Does that change your assessment of the threat they pose? No, Patel admitted. They're still developing a bioweapon designed to eradicate humanity, but it does raise moral questions about our response. Doctor, Thorne said quietly, I appreciate your ethical concerns, truly. But right now, there are 40 humans being tortured and experimented on. Whatever consciousness the Volari possess, they've made their choice. Our job is to make sure humanity survives their decision. Patel nodded reluctantly. I understand, Captain. I just thought you should know. And I'm glad you told me, Thorne replied. Keep questioning. Keep searching for better answers. That's what separates us from them. She checked her chronometer. Now, let's gear up. We dock in 20 minutes. The interior of Obsidian Reach was a nightmarish blend of technological precision and organic horror. Bioluminescent strips pulsed along curved corridors that resembled nothing so much as the inside of a massive digestive tract. The air was thick with a sweet, cloying scent that made the human strike team's eyes water behind their tactical visors. Captain Thorne led her team deeper into the research sector, every sense alert for signs of Volari defenders. Silva's disruptor had been successfully planted at a communications node near their entry point, and its effects were evident. They had encountered only sporadic resistance so far. The Volari guards disorganized and easily outmaneuvered. Life signs ahead, Patel whispered, checking her scanner. 3 Volari, in what appears to be the main research laboratory. Thorne signaled to the 2 security officers accompanying them. Flashbang. Then we move in. Remember, we need that research data intact. The security officers nodded, readying their weapons as one of them prepared a stun grenade. On Thorne's signal, the officer rolled the device around the corner into the laboratory. A brilliant flash and concussive boom followed, accompanied by the distinctive chittering screech of disoriented Volari. Move, Thorne ordered, leading the charge into the laboratory. The room was vast, its ceiling lost in shadows above. The walls were lined with transparent chambers containing floating biological specimens, some Volari, some recognizably human. In the center stood 3 Volari researchers, their insectoid forms swaying as they recovered from the flashbang's effects. Unlike the warrior drones they had encountered earlier, these Volari were smaller, with enlarged cranial structures and more delicate limbs. Thorne's team had them surrounded before they could fully recover, pulse rifles trained on the chitinous bodies. Dr. Patel, secure that data, Thorne ordered, keeping her weapon trained on the largest of the Volari researchers. Patel moved quickly to a console that appeared to be a hybrid of organic tissue and crystalline technology. She attached a specialized data extraction device that began to interface with the alien system. One of the Volari researchers began to make a series of rapid clicking sounds, its compound eyes fixed on Thorn. The universal translator on her suit processed the sounds, converting them to halting English. "You violate sacred work," the Volari said, its multiple limbs twitching. "Humanity, infection, must be cleansed." "You're developing a bioweapon to commit genocide," Thorn replied coldly. "Against a species that never provoked you." "Provocation, your existence," the Volari responded. "Your individuality, chaos factor, cannot be permitted." While this exchange continued, Patel worked feverishly at the console. "Captain, I'm accessing their research database now. It's... my God." Her voice faltered. "They've been experimenting on humans for months, long before the official hostilities began. They've been preparing for this war for years." The Volari researcher suddenly lunged toward a control panel, one clawed limb extended to press what could only be an alarm. Without hesitation, Thorn fired her pulse rifle. The theta radiation burst struck the Volari squarely in its thorax, causing its exoskeleton to crack as it collapsed to the floor, twitching. The other two researchers backed away, their limbs raised in what might have been a gesture of surrender. "Keep them covered," Thorn ordered the security officers before turning to Patel. "How much longer?" "Almost done," Patel replied, her face pale as she scanned through the data. "Captain, they're planning to deploy the bioweapon against New Valorum within days. A prototype is already being prepared for launch." "Can you locate it?" Thorn asked urgently. Patel tapped at the console. "Yes, it's in a secure storage facility 2 levels below us. But Captain, there's more. The bioweapon isn't just designed to kill humans. It's designed to harvest our neural tissue for integration into their hive mind. They're not just eliminating us. They're absorbing what they consider useful." Thorn's expression hardened. "Download everything, then plant the charges. We're destroying this facility on our way out." "Captain," one of the security officers called out. "We're receiving a transmission from Commander Reeves. They've secured the prisoners and are beginning extraction, but they're encountering heavy resistance on the detention level." "Tell him we're on our way," Thorn ordered. "Dr. Patel, are you finished?" "Download complete," Patel confirmed, disconnecting her device from the console. "Charges set on a 15-minute timer." Thorn turned to the remaining Volari researchers. "You have a choice. Stay here and die when those charges detonate, or accompany us as prisoners of war." The Volari exchanged what appeared to be a silent communication, their antennae quivering. Then, to Thorn's surprise, one of them spoke. "We will come. Individual survival? New concept. Interesting." "Secure them," Thorn ordered. "But watch them carefully. Just because they're separated from the hive mind doesn't mean they're not dangerous." As the security officers bound the Volari researchers with specialized restraints designed to immobilize their multiple limbs, Thorn's communicator crackled. "Captain, this is Silva." The ensign's voice was tight with tension. "The disruptor is functioning, but I've discovered something critical. The Volari aren't just using this facility for bioweapon research. They're using it as a staging area for an invasion fleet. There are coordinates in their navigation system pointing directly to New Valorum. The attack is scheduled to begin in less than 48 hours. Thorn's blood ran cold. "Can you transmit those coordinates to the Defiant?" "Already done," Silva replied. "But there's a complication. The Volari have detected our ship. They're sending vessels to intercept." "Understood. Rendezvous at Extraction Point Alpha in 10 minutes. Thorn cut the communication and turned to her team. "Change of plans. We're making a detour to the storage facility. We need to secure that bioweapon prototype." "Captain," Patel protested. "That's 2 levels down, through the heaviest security in the facility. With these prisoners, we'll never make it back to the extraction point in time." Thorne considered for a moment. You're right. Take the security team and the prisoners back to the extraction point. I'll go after the bioweapon myself. Not alone, Patel said firmly. You'll need me to identify and safely contain the prototype. Thorne nodded reluctantly. All right, you two, she addressed the security officers. Get these prisoners back to Commander Reeves. Tell him to begin extraction without us if necessary. Dr. Patel and I will secure the bioweapon and find our own way out. As the security team led the Volari prisoners away, Thorne checked her weapon and turned to Patel. Ready? The xenobiologist's face was resolute despite her evident fear. Ready, Captain. Together, they plunged deeper into the heart of Obsidian Reach, racing against time as the facility's self-destruct sequence counted down. The storage facility was a cavernous chamber, dominated by a central containment unit that pulsed with an eerie blue light. Volari guard drones lay scattered across the floor, their exoskeletons shattered by precision shots from Thorne's pulse rifle. The captain stood watch at the entrance while Dr. Patel worked to secure the bioweapon prototype. This is ingenious and horrifying, Patel murmured as she carefully extracted a glowing cylinder from the containment unit. The delivery system is designed to bypass all known human filtration technology. It would spread through an entire colony's air supply within hours. Can you safely transport it? Thorne asked, her eyes constantly scanning for threats. Yes, with this. Patel produced a specialized containment case from her pack and gently placed the cylinder inside. This will neutralize any attempt at self-propagation and keep it stable for study. As she sealed the case, a violent tremor shook the facility, causing dust and debris to rain down from the ceiling. The charges are beginning to detonate, Thorne realized. We need to move. Now. They rushed from the storage facility, making their way through increasingly unstable corridors as explosions echoed throughout the asteroid. The route to their designated extraction point was blocked by a collapsed section, forcing them to find an alternative path. This way, Thorne directed, consulting the facility schematic on her tactical display. There's an auxiliary docking bay on this level that might still be accessible. As they rounded a corner, they found themselves face to face with a Volari command drone, larger than the warriors they had encountered earlier, with more elaborate exoskeletal markings denoting its higher status. Unlike the disoriented drones they had fought previously, this one moved with purpose and precision. The disruptor's effect doesn't reach this far, Patel realized. It's still connected to the hive mind. The Volari commander chittered something that their translators couldn't process before launching itself at them with frightening speed. Thorne fired her pulse rifle, but the Volari twisted in midair, the shot merely grazing its armored carapace. It collided with Thorne, sending her crashing against the wall as her weapon skittered across the floor. Patel fired her own weapon, striking the Volari in one of its secondary limbs. It screeched in pain, but remained focused on Thorne, recognizing her as the primary threat. One clawed appendage raised to deliver a killing blow. Thorne rolled aside at the last second, the Volari's claw embedding itself in the wall where her head had been a moment before. As it struggled to free itself, Thorne drew her sidearm, a conventional projectile weapon rather than the more advanced pulse pistol. She fired 3 shots in rapid succession, targeting the joint where the Volari's head connected to its thorax. The creature convulsed, green ichor spraying from its wounds, but it tore itself free from the wall and lunged again. This time, Patel was ready. She had adjusted her pulse rifle to its maximum setting and fired directly at the Volari's damaged neck joint. The theta radiation burst tore through the weakened exoskeleton, severing the commander's head from its body. The headless torso continued to thrash for several seconds before finally collapsing. "You all right, Captain?" Patel asked, helping Thorne to her feet. "I'll live," Thorne replied, wincing as she tested her right arm. "Might have cracked a rib or two. Let's keep moving." Another explosion, closer this time, sent them staggering as the corridor behind them collapsed entirely. "The facility's breaking apart faster than anticipated," Patel said, checking the containment case to ensure the bioweapon prototype was secure. "Those charges must have triggered a chain reaction with something else in the asteroid." They reached the auxiliary docking bay to find it in chaos. Most of the Volari vessels had already launched, leaving only a single shuttle remaining. Volari workers scrambled to evacuate, paying little attention to the two humans who had entered their midst. "That shuttle is our only way out," Thorne said, gesturing to the organic-looking craft. "Think you can fly it?" "Their control systems are based on neural interfaces," Patel replied. "But I've studied their technology extensively. I should be able to jury-rig a manual override." They made their way across the docking bay, trying to blend in with the panicking Volari. Just as they reached the shuttle, a deafening alarm blared throughout the facility, and the Volari workers suddenly froze in place, their antennae quivering in unison. "They've been alerted to our presence," Thorne realized. "The hive mind has overridden their evacuation protocols." As one, the Volari workers turned toward them, their previously harmless forms transforming as hidden claws extended from their limbs. "Get to the shuttle," Thorne ordered, positioning herself between Patel and the advancing Volari. "I'll hold them off." "Captain," Patel began to protest. "That's an order, Doctor. That prototype is more important than either of us." Patel hesitated only a moment before rushing to the shuttle. The containment case clutched tightly to her chest. Thorne faced the approaching Volari workers, her sidearm in one hand and a combat knife in the other. She knew she couldn't stop them all, but she only needed to buy Patel enough time to get the shuttle operational. The first wave of Volari reached her, and Thorne fought with the desperate efficiency of someone who had accepted the possibility of death. Her bullets found vulnerable joints. Her knife slashed through sensory organs. But for each Volari that fell, two more took its place. A claw raked across her back, tearing through her tactical vest. Another slashed at her leg, drawing blood. Just as she was about to be overwhelmed, the shuttle's engines roared to life behind her. A searing blast of energy cut through the ranks of the Volari as Patel fired the shuttle's weapon system. The creatures scattered, giving Thorne the opening she needed to sprint for the shuttle's open hatch. She threw herself inside as Patel activated the closing mechanism. The hatch sealed just as the Volari regrouped for another assault. "Can you fly this thing?" Thorne asked, grimacing as she applied pressure to the wound on her leg. "I think so," Patel replied, her hands dancing across the hybrid neural, mechanical interface she had created. "The controls are responding. But, Captain, we have another problem. The Defiant is under attack. Commander Reeves is holding position as long as possible, but they're facing multiple Volari vessels." "Then, we'll have to create a diversion," Thorne said, pulling herself into the co-pilot seat despite her injuries. "What weapons does this shuttle have?" "Standard plasma cannons and—" "Wait." Patel's eyes widened as she accessed the shuttle's systems. "This vessel is equipped with a prototype of the same bioweapon we just secured. It was being prepared for deployment." Thorne's expression darkened. "Can you arm it?" Patel looked at her in shock. "Captain, you can't be considering—" "Not to use against humans," Thorne clarified. "But if we can modify it to target the Volari ships instead." Understanding dawned on Patel's face. "A reverse-engineered version. Yes, theoretically possible. Their biotech ships have similar neural pathways to the Volari themselves. If I can recalibrate the dispersal mechanism to target their specific genetic markers." "Do it," Thorne ordered, "and launch us out of here before this whole asteroid comes down around us." As Patel guided the unfamiliar shuttle out of the disintegrating facility, Thorne opened a communication channel to the Defiant. "Commander Reeves, this is Captain Thorne. Dr. Patel and I have secured the prototype and are en route to your position in a Volari shuttle. Hold fire when you see us approaching." "Captain!" Reeves' voice was nearly drowned out by the sound of battle. "We've extracted all surviving prisoners and are engaging 4 Volari cruisers. Our shields are at 20%. We can't hold this position much longer. We're bringing a surprise package, Thorne replied. Be ready to jump to FTL the moment we dock. As the shuttle cleared the asteroid, they were greeted by the sight of the Defiant exchanging fire with 4 larger Volari vessels. The human ship was maneuvering brilliantly, but it was clearly outmatched. Bioweapon recalibration complete, Patel announced, her voice tight with stress. But, Captain, I must register my formal objection to this course of action. We're talking about deploying a weapon of mass destruction. Objection noted, Doctor, Thorne replied grimly. But those ships are part of an invasion fleet preparing to attack New Valorum. If they reach the colony, millions will die. She looked Patel in the eye. Sometimes, survival requires terrible choices. After a moment of internal struggle, Patel nodded. The dispersal system is armed. Range to target is 30 seconds. As they approached the battle, one of the Volari cruisers broke off to intercept their shuttle, recognizing it as stolen. They're locking weapons on us, Thorne warned. Evasive maneuvers! Patel piloted the shuttle with surprising skill, weaving through the energy blasts from the pursuing cruiser. 20 seconds to optimal dispersal range. Defiant. Prepare to withdraw to minimum safe distance on my mark. Thorne transmitted, Reeves, get our people clear! The shuttle shuddered as a glancing hit struck its rear section. Warning lights flashed across the makeshift control panel. Hull breach in the aft compartment, Patel reported. Sealing now. 10 seconds to dispersal range. The pursuing Volari cruiser was closing rapidly, its weapons charging for another volley that would likely destroy the shuttle completely. 5 seconds. 4, 3. Defiant, withdraw now, Thorne ordered. 2, 1. Dispersing bioagent. A pale mist erupted from the shuttle's external vents, quickly expanding into a cloud that enveloped the nearby Volari cruiser. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the organic hull of the Volari ship began to convulse, its bioluminescent patterns flaring erratically. It's working, Patel whispered, a mixture of awe and horror in her voice. The bioagent is attacking the neural pathways of the ship itself. The effect spread with terrifying speed. The Volari cruiser's weapons went silent as its hull began to split and rupture, green ichor spilling into space. The contagion spread to the other Volari vessels as the cloud expanded, carried by the specialized delivery system designed for maximum propagation. Within minutes, all 4 Volari cruisers were drifting lifeless in space, their organic systems destroyed by the modified bioweapon. Doctor, set course for the Defiant, Thorne ordered quietly, unable to take her eyes off the dying Volari ships. And prepare to destroy this shuttle once we're safely aboard. Patel nodded silently, guiding their vessel toward the waiting human ship. Neither of them spoke of what they had just done, the line they had crossed in the name of survival. As they docked with the Defiant, Thorne knew that this was only the beginning. The Volari would respond to this defeat with even greater fury. But humanity now had something it hadn't possessed before, a weapon that could target the very biological foundation of Volari power. The question that weighed on Thorne's mind as she limped from the shuttle was not whether they could win this war, but what winning would cost them, and whether humanity would recognize itself when the fighting was done. The war escalated with a brutality that shocked even the most hardened veterans of previous conflicts. The Volari attack on New Valorum came as predicted, but the colony was prepared. The modified bioweapon, refined by Dr. Patel and her team, proved devastatingly effective against the Volari bioships. The invasion was repelled, but not without cost. Thousands of colonists died in the initial assault. In response, the Earth Council authorized a counteroffensive. Captain Thorne, now promoted to admiral, was given command of a task force consisting of the newly repaired Horizon, the Defiant, and 3 additional warships. Their mission: push back the Volari advance and secure the Gravis Nebula. a strategic region rich in the rare elements needed for FTL drive production. The nebula proved to be the perfect setting for Thorne's tactical genius. Rather than engaging the superior Volari fleet directly, she implemented a guerrilla campaign, using the nebula's dense gas clouds and gravitational anomalies to ambush Volari vessels, striking swiftly before disappearing back into the cosmic fog. First Officer Reeves, promoted to captain of the Defiant, distinguished himself in these operations, his intimate knowledge of Volari tactics proving invaluable. But colleagues noted a growing ruthlessness in his methods. He left no survivors, even when Volari vessels attempted to surrender. Meanwhile, Dr. Patel continued her research into Volari biology, developing increasingly potent weapons tailored to their physiology. Each breakthrough was accompanied by a visible toll on the scientist's spirit. The idealistic researcher who had once argued for the recognition of Volari consciousness now worked in grim silence, her hands creating instruments of genocide. Ensign Silva's expertise with Volari communication systems led to her rapid promotion to lieutenant and assignment to Earth's Cybernetic Warfare Division. Her disruptor technology evolved into a network of subspace jammers that could isolate entire Volari fleets from their hive mind, leaving them vulnerable to human attacks. 6 months into the war, the conflict reached a new level of ferocity when the Volari deployed what human forces dubbed Star Shredders, massive bioorganic constructs capable of inducing solar flares in otherwise stable stars. The human colony of New Terra was rendered uninhabitable when its sun erupted, killing millions who couldn't evacuate in time. The Earth Council's response was equally devastating. A neutral trading hub known to supply the Volari with rare elements was destroyed by a salvo of nuclear weapons, despite the presence of thousands of non-combatants from various species. The message was clear. Anyone who aided the Volari would share their fate. As the war ground on, Admiral Thorne found herself increasingly at odds with the civilian authorities who ostensibly commanded her. The Earth Council, safely distant from the front lines, still spoke of finding diplomatic solutions, of establishing communication with the Volari leadership to negotiate terms. There is no leadership to negotiate with, Thorne argued during a particularly heated council session. The Volari Collective is a single organism with billions of extensions. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't compromise. It doesn't coexist. It consumes or it destroys. Even single organisms can learn, countered Counselor Elena Vasquez, one of the few voices still advocating for restraint. We've seen evidence that the Volari are adapting, evolving in response to this conflict. Some captured specimens have exhibited individualistic behavior previously unheard of in their species. They're adapting to become more effective killers, Thorne retorted. Every Volari ship we destroy, every drone we kill, feeds information back to the collective. They're learning our tactics, our weaknesses. The longer this war continues, the smaller our advantage becomes. So what are you proposing, Admiral? Asked Council Chair Marcus Way, the former governor of New Valorum, who had been elevated to Earth's highest civilian office after his leadership during the colony's successful defense. Thorne's answer was direct and chilling. We've identified the location of the Volari home system, specifically their primary world, which houses what we believe to be the central node of their collective consciousness, what Dr. Patel has termed the life core. I'm proposing a direct assault on this target with our entire fleet. A stunned silence fell over the council chamber. The Volari home system is defended by a Dyson ring, a megastructure that harvests nearly 100% of their star's energy output. Thorne continued. It's the most heavily fortified position in known space. But our intelligence suggests that the ring is also connected to the life core. If we can breach the ring and destroy the core, we can potentially end the war in a single stroke. By committing genocide, Counselor Vasquez said quietly. Thorne met her gaze without flinching. By ensuring humanity's survival, the Volari have made their intentions perfectly clear. This isn't about territory or resources or even ideology. They want us extinct. Every moment we hesitate brings them one step closer to achieving that goal. After days of debate, the Council approved Thorne's plan by a narrow margin. Operation Sunbreaker would commence within the month, with Admiral Thorne commanding a fleet of 20 warships, the largest human military force ever assembled. The night before the fleet's departure, Thorne found herself unable to sleep. She stood in the observation lounge of the horizon, staring out at the assembled ships as they prepared for what might be humanity's final battle. "Trouble sleeping, Admiral," came a voice from behind her. Thorne turned to see Dr. Patel, looking years older than she had at the beginning of the war. The xenobiologist's once vibrant eyes were now shadowed with exhaustion and what Thorne recognized as moral fatigue. "Just reviewing the operation in my mind," Thorne replied. "Looking for contingencies we might have missed." Patel moved to stand beside her at the viewport. "I've finalized the bioagent that will target the life core. It's extremely effective. Once deployed, it will cascade through their neural network in minutes. The entire collective will be neutralized." "Neutralized," Thorne repeated. "A clinical term for the death of trillions of connected minds." "Would you prefer I call it what it is?" Patel asked, a rare edge entering her voice. "Genocide. The complete eradication of a sentient species." Thorne was silent for a long moment. "Do you think I've become a monster, Doctor? That I've lost sight of what we're fighting for?" "I think we've all lost something in this war," Patel replied softly. "The question is whether what remains will be worth saving. If we lose, there won't be anything left to save," Thorne said. "The Volari won't stop until every human is dead or harvested for their neural tissue. Every atrocity we've committed has been in service of preventing an even greater one." "That's what I tell myself every night," Patel said, "that the weapons I create, the lives I help end, are necessary sacrifices. But I wonder if the Volari tell themselves something similar about us." Thorne turned to face the scientist fully. "Have you discovered something new about them?" "The Volari we've captured, the ones separated from the hive mind. They're changing, Admiral, developing distinct personalities, independent thoughts. One of them has even requested asylum." "Asylum?" Thorne couldn't hide her surprise. "On what grounds?" "On the grounds that it no longer wishes to be part of the collective. That it has discovered something it values more than the hive's survival. Its own individual existence." Patel's eyes held a hint of their old passion. "Don't you see what this means? The Volari aren't immutably committed to our destruction. They can change. They can learn." "One rogue drone doesn't change the nature of the collective," Thorne argued. "No, but it suggests the collective's nature isn't as fixed as we thought," Patel countered. "What if there's another way to end this war? What if, instead of destroying the life core, we could modify it? Use my bioagent not to kill, but to induce individuality throughout the collective." Thorne considered this idea, tempted by the possibility of a solution that didn't require genocide. "And if it fails? If we reach the life core only to discover your theory is wrong?" "Then we still have the option to destroy it," Patel said. "But we will have tried something better first, something that might allow both our species to survive." After a long silence, Thorne nodded slowly. "Modify your bioagent. Doctor, create both versions, one that kills and one that transforms. When we reach the life core, we'll make the final decision based on what we find there." As Patel left to return to her laboratory, Thorne turned back to the viewport, watching as the fleet made its final preparations. She had led humanity through nearly a year of brutal warfare, crossing moral lines she once would have thought impassable. Now, on the eve of what could be their final victory, or their ultimate defeat, she found herself hoping for a third option, one that might allow her to recognize the person she saw reflected in the glass. The Volari home system was a testament to the collective's technological prowess and alien mindset. The Dyson ring that encircled their star was not the rigid structure human engineers might have designed, but a living, pulsing web of interconnected bioorganic platforms. Each segment housed millions of Volari, all linked to the central life core hidden deep within the structure. Admiral Thorne stood on the bridge of the horizon, watching as the human fleet emerged from FTL at the outer edge of the system. Despite months of planning, the sight of their objective still took her breath away. The sheer scale of the ring dwarfed anything humanity had ever constructed. All ships reporting successful transition. Captain Reeves reported from his position at Tactical. No immediate response from Volari defenses. "They know we're here," Thorne said with certainty. "They're assessing, planning their response." As if confirming her words, the tactical display lit up with hundreds of energy signatures as the ring's defensive systems activated. Massive bioorganic weapons platforms detached from the structure, forming a protective screen between the human fleet and their target. "Fleet-wide transmission," Thorne ordered. "Execute Operation Sunbreaker, Phase 1. The human fleet split into 3 battle groups as planned. The largest group, led by the heavy cruiser Dauntless, moved to engage the Volari platforms directly, drawing their fire. The second group, consisting of the Defiant and 4 escort destroyers, began a wide flanking maneuver, targeting a secondary approach vector identified by intelligence as less heavily defended. The Horizon led the third and smallest group, 3 specialized infiltration vessels designed for a single purpose: to breach the ring and deliver a strike team to the life core. Dauntless is engaging primary defenses, Lieutenant Silva reported from communications. Captain Reeves reports the Defiant group is proceeding to attack Point Beta. Thorne nodded, her eyes fixed on the tactical display as the battle unfolded. The human fleet was outnumbered and outgunned, but they had surprise and desperation on their side. The Volari, for all their biological adaptability, had never faced a coordinated all-out assault on their home system. "Breach team, report to Shuttle Bay," Thorne ordered over the ship-wide comm. "Dr. Patel, bring both versions of the bioagent." As the Horizon and its escorts accelerated toward a narrow gap between 2 sections of the ring, Volari bioships rose to intercept them. The space around the human vessels filled with pulses of deadly energy and organic projectiles that could burrow through hull plating. "Evasive pattern Delta," Thorne commanded. "Focus fire on the lead interceptor. We need to punch through their screen." The Horizon's weapons blazed, joined by those of its escorts. One Volari ship erupted in a shower of burning organic matter, then another. But for each one destroyed, 2 more took its place, emerging from hangars concealed within the ring structure. A violent impact shook the Horizon as a bioplasma torpedo struck its port side. "Shields holding at 60%, the tactical officer reported. "But we can't sustain this level of fire for long." "We don't need long," Thorne replied. "Just long enough to reach our insertion point." She opened a channel to the engine room. "Engineering, prepare for emergency thrust on my mark. We're going to make a run for the gap." In the shuttle bay, Dr. Patel checked the containment cases holding the 2 versions of her bioagent. One designed to destroy the Volari collective, the other to transform it. The weight of the decision they would soon face pressed heavily on her mind. The strike team assembled around her, 12 of the fleet's best soldiers, led by Commander Jackson, a veteran of the new Valorum defense. Their expressions were grim, each aware that this mission would likely be one way. "Dr. Patel," Admiral Thorne's voice came over the comm. "What's your status?" "Bioagents secure," Patel replied. "Strike team ready." "Good. We're approaching the insertion point. Be prepared for immediate launch." The Horizon shuddered again as another hit struck home. The lights flickered momentarily before the backup systems engaged. "Admiral," Silva called out urgently. "I'm detecting a massive energy buildup within the ring. They're channeling power from the star itself." Thorne's expression tightened. They're preparing to activate the Nova Drive. If they succeed, they'll trigger a stellar flare that could incinerate our entire fleet. She made a swift decision. All ships, execute Emergency Protocol Omega. Horizon will proceed to insertion point alone. All escorts, fall back to minimum safe distance. Admiral, Silva protested, without escort, our chances of reaching the insertion point are irrelevant, Lieutenant, Thorne cut her off. If we don't stop that Nova Drive activation, none of us will survive anyway. She opened a ship-wide channel. All hands, brace for maximum acceleration. Engineering, emergency thrust now. The Horizon surged forward. Its engines pushed far beyond safe operational parameters. The sudden acceleration crushed the crew into their seats as the ship hurtled toward the narrow gap in the Volari defenses. Volari bioships swarmed to intercept, their weapons converging on the lone human vessel. The Horizon's point defense systems worked frantically to neutralize incoming threats, but they couldn't stop them all. Impacts rocked the ship as bioplasma torpedoes found their mark. Shields failing. Tactical reported. Hull breaches on decks 4 through 7. Emergency containment holding. Distance to insertion point, Thorne demanded. 15 seconds at current velocity, came the reply. Strike team, prepare for immediate launch. You'll have a very narrow window. In the shuttle bay, Commander Jackson gave final instructions to his team as they boarded the specialized insertion craft, a sleek, armored vessel designed to penetrate the Dyson Ring's outer shell. Dr. Patel took her place aboard, the 2 containment cases secured beside her. The bay doors opened, revealing the chaotic battle outside and, beyond it, the looming structure of the Dyson Ring. The insertion point, a maintenance access node identified by intelligence, was now visible, a relatively unprotected area where the ring's segments connected. Launch window in 5 seconds, came the countdown from the bridge. 4, 3, 2, 1, launch. The insertion craft shot from the Horizon's bay, accelerating toward the ring as Volari weapons fire crisscrossed around it. The small vessel's stealth systems activated, temporarily masking its signature from Volari sensors. Successful launch, Silva reported. Insertion craft on target trajectory. Thorne allowed herself a moment of relief before turning to her next task. All hands, prepare for evasive withdrawal. Once the strike team is clear, we'll fall back to... Her words were cut short as a massive organic projectile struck the Horizon's bridge section directly. The impact threw Thorne against a bulkhead as emergency containment fields flickered into existence around the newly formed breach. Warning klaxons blared as the ship's automated systems reported catastrophic damage. Status, Thorne demanded, pulling herself to her feet despite the blood streaming from a gash on her forehead. Bridge compromised. Tactical reported, his voice strained. Main power failing. Weapons offline. Propulsion at 30%. Thorne surveyed the devastation around her. Half the bridge crew lay dead or injured. Consoles sparked with electrical fires. And through the containment field, she could see the cold void of space where part of her ship had been. Get the wounded to emergency medical, she ordered. Transfer command functions to auxiliary control. She tapped her communicator. Strike team, this is Admiral Thorne. The Horizon is critically damaged. We cannot provide extraction. You are on your own. Understood, Admiral, Commander Jackson's voice replied, distorted by interference. We've reached the insertion point. Beginning penetration procedure. Thorne watched on the remaining functional displays as the small craft attached itself to the Dyson Ring's outer shell. Cutting tools deploying to create an entry point. Then, the feed cut out as the team moved inside, beyond the range of direct communication. Lieutenant Silva, Thorne said, turning to the communications officer, who had somehow remained at her post despite the chaos. Send a message to the Defiant. Inform Captain Reeves that the strike team is deployed and the Horizon is disabled. He is to continue with Phase 2 of the operation regardless of our status. Yes, Admiral, Silva replied, her hands working across her damaged console. Thorne made her way to a still-functioning tactical display, studying the battle that raged around them. The human fleet was fighting valiantly, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. The Dauntless had taken heavy damage. Several escort vessels were already destroyed, and Volari bioships continued to emerge from the ring in seemingly endless numbers. Yet, despite the dire situation, the operation was proceeding according to plan. The strike team had breached the ring. The Defiant group was moving into position to attack the ring's power distribution nodes, which would hopefully prevent the Nova Drive activation. They still had a chance, slim but real, to end this war. As emergency teams worked to stabilize the Horizon's critical systems, Thorne found herself thinking of Dr. Patel's question from the night before. Would what remained of humanity after this war be worth saving? Looking at her crew, still fighting to save their ship despite the hopelessness of their situation, she believed the answer was yes. Now they just had to survive long enough to find out. The interior of the Dyson ring was unlike anything the strike team had ever encountered. They moved through corridors that seemed to breathe, walls pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that shifted in response to their presence. The air was thick with spores that would have been lethal without their specialized environmental suits. Commander Jackson led the way, following the route mapped out by intelligence toward the life core at the center of the ring. Dr. Patel stayed in the middle of the formation, the two containment cases secure in her backpack, her mind racing with the implications of what they were about to do. "Movement ahead," one of the team members warned, her weapon raised. "Multiple signatures, closing fast." Jackson signaled the team to take defensive positions in a wider section of corridor. "Remember, standard weapons have limited effect. Use the theta radiation pulses, and aim for joint sections and sensory organs." The Volari drones that rounded the corner were unlike the warrior forms they had encountered in previous battles. These were smaller, more delicate, clearly designed for maintenance rather than combat. But as they detected the human intruders, they underwent a horrifying transformation. Limbs elongated into razor-sharp appendages, mandibles extended from previously concealed facial structures, and what had appeared to be decorative carapace elements hardened into armor. "Open fire!" Jackson ordered. The strike team's specialized weapons discharged pulses of theta radiation, striking the transformed Volari with devastating effect. The first wave fell, their exoskeletons cracking as the radiation disrupted their neural pathways. But more kept coming, scrambling over the bodies of their fallen brethren with single-minded determination. "They're trying to overwhelm us through sheer numbers," Jackson realized. "Fall back to the next junction. Martinez, Singh, covering fire." The team executed a fighting withdrawal, two members laying down suppressive fire while the others retreated to the next defensible position. Dr. Patel found herself being hustled along by Jackson himself, the commander's massive frame shielding her from enemy fire. "The life core can't be far," she said, between labored breaths. "These maintenance drones wouldn't be so numerous unless we were approaching something vital." Jackson nodded grimly. "Which means resistance will only increase. We need to find another approach." He consulted the holographic map projected from his wrist unit. "There." He pointed to a narrow passage branching off from their current position. "That maintenance shaft should bypass the main corridors and lead us closer to the core." The team fought their way to the indicated passage, losing two members in the process. As they sealed the entrance behind them, Jackson took a moment to assess their situation. "8 of us left," he said quietly. "Limited ammunition, no communication with the fleet, and we still have to reach the core, deploy the bioagent, and somehow extract—" "We knew this was likely a one-way mission," one of the soldiers replied stoically. Jackson nodded, then turned to Dr. Patel. "Doctor, when we reach the core, how quickly will your bioagent take effect?" "The lethal variant would cascade through their neural network within minutes," Patel replied. "The alternative version would take longer, perhaps hours for the full transformation to occur." "We may not have hours," Jackson said. The fleet is buying us time, but they can't hold forever. He hesitated, then asked directly, "Which version do you recommend?" Patel felt the weight of billions of lives in her answer. I don't know, Commander. That's a decision I was hoping Admiral Thorne would make when we assessed the situation at the Corps. And if she can't, if we're on our own? Then we'll have to decide based on what we find, Patel said. Whether the Volari can change, or whether they're truly committed to our extinction. The maintenance shaft narrowed as they progressed, forcing them to move in single file. The organic nature of the structure became even more pronounced, with surfaces that felt less like walls and more like the interior of a living being. Pulsing veins carried glowing fluids, and the air grew increasingly warm and humid. "We're approaching something important," Patel observed. "These conduits are carrying nutrients and information to a central location." The shaft eventually opened into a vast chamber that took their breath away. Above, below, and all around them stretched an intricate web of neural tissue on a scale that defied comprehension, pulsing with light and energy. The network converged on a central structure, a massive, crystalline formation that hovered in the center of the chamber, suspended by tendrils of living matter. "The life core," Patel whispered in awe. "The physical manifestation of the Volari collective consciousness." As they observed, they became aware of movement within the chamber. Hundreds of specialized Volari moved among the neural pathways, tending to the massive structure with reverent care. Unlike the drones they had encountered earlier, these Volari moved with purpose and coordination that suggested higher intelligence. "I don't think they've detected us yet," Jackson said quietly. "The neural activity in this chamber must be masking our presence." Patel studied the core, her scientific mind racing to understand what she was seeing. "This is incredible. The entire collective consciousness is both distributed throughout their population and centralized in this structure. It's a redundant system, but with a primary node." "Can your bioagent affect it?" Jackson asked. "Yes, if we can get close enough to the central crystal," Patel replied. "That appears to be the primary coordination node, but we'll need to reach it without alerting the entire chamber." As they planned their approach, a disturbance rippled through the chamber. The Volari attendants suddenly froze in place, their antennae quivering in unison. Then, as one, they turned toward a new arrival entering through a massive doorway opposite the strike team's position. The creature that entered was unlike any Volari they had encountered before. Larger, more elaborately adorned, with an exoskeleton that gleamed with metallic patterns and a cranial structure nearly triple the size of normal drones. Multiple limbs of varying specializations extended from its thorax, and a corona of sensory appendages surrounded its head like a crown. "The Regent," Patel breathed, "the physical embodiment of the collective's governing consciousness." The Regent moved directly to the central crystal, extending several specialized limbs to interface with its surface. The crystal's pulsing light intensified, and suddenly, the entire chamber was filled with a holographic display of the battle raging outside. "It's monitoring the battle," Jackson realized, directing the Volari response in real time. The display showed the human fleet taking heavy losses. Several ships were already destroyed, others critically damaged. But the Defiant and its escort group had successfully reached their target, attacking the ring's power distribution nodes with precision strikes. "They're preventing the Nova Drive activation," Patel observed, "but they won't be able to hold that position for long." The Regent chittered something to the assembled attendants, who immediately dispersed to various control interfaces around the chamber. The holographic display shifted to show a new energy buildup within the ring. Not the Nova Drive, but something equally devastating. "They're activating some kind of concentrated energy weapon," Jackson said, studying the display. "Targeting the Defiant directly." Patel's eyes widened. "If they destroy the Defiant group, there will be nothing preventing them from triggering the Nova Drive. Then we move now," Jackson decided, "Team, prepare for assault. Target the Regent and any attendants near the core. Dr. Patel, stay behind us until we secure the approach to the crystal." The remaining members of the strike team readied their weapons, each understanding that this would likely be their final action. Jackson gave the signal, and they emerged from concealment, weapons blazing. The theta radiation pulses cut through the unprepared attendants, dropping several before they could react. The remaining Volari scrambled for defensive positions, their bodies transforming for combat as alarms blared throughout the chamber. The Regent remained by the crystal, seemingly unconcerned by the human assault. As Jackson led the team in a charge toward the core, the Regent raised two of its upper limbs. A shimmering energy field materialized between the humans and their target. "Field is deflecting our weapons," one of the soldiers called out, as their shots dissipated harmlessly against the barrier. "Find another angle," Jackson ordered. "Flank left and right." The team split into two groups, attempting to circle around the energy field. But as they moved, the barrier expanded, forming a complete hemisphere around the Regent and the crystal core. Volari reinforcements poured into the chamber from multiple entrances, quickly surrounding the human strike team. The battle devolved into desperate close-quarters combat, with the outnumbered humans fighting with grim determination. "Commander!" Patel called out from her position behind a neural conduit. "The field appears to be keyed to Volari biology. It might allow organic material with the right genetic markers to pass through." Jackson, grappling with a Volari drone that had broken through their perimeter, drove his combat knife into the creature's sensory cluster before responding. Meaning I might be able to pass through if I use the Volari tissue samples in my kit to mask my biological signature. Patel explained, "But I'd have to go alone. I only have enough material for one person." Jackson dispatched another drone before falling back to Patel's position. The situation was deteriorating rapidly. 3 more of his team had fallen, leaving only him and 2 others still fighting. "Do it," he decided. "We'll create a diversion to draw as many away from the core as possible." He grasped her shoulder briefly. "Which bioagent will you use?" Patel hesitated only a moment. "The one that feels right when I'm standing before their consciousness." Jackson nodded, understanding the weight of the decision she faced. "Good luck, Doctor." While Patel quickly applied the Volari tissue extracts to her environmental suit's exterior, Jackson coordinated with his remaining soldiers. On his signal, they activated their weapons overload sequences and threw them to opposite sides of the chamber, creating massive explosions that drew many of the Volari defenders away. In the chaos, Patel sprinted toward the energy barrier, the 2 containment cases clutched to her chest. As she reached the shimmering field, she hesitated for just a fraction of a second before stepping forward. The barrier rippled around her, then allowed her to pass through. She found herself alone in the hemisphere with the Regent and the crystal core. The massive Volari turned to regard her, its compound eyes gleaming with an intelligence that seemed both alien and disturbingly familiar. "You come to destroy," the Regent said, its voice translating through Patel's suit systems into halting English. "Yet you hesitate. Contradiction. Interesting." "You understand our language," Patel said, surprised. "We understand all that we consume," the Regent replied. "Many humans have been absorbed. Their knowledge is ours." Outside the barrier, the battle raged on. Jackson and his remaining team members fought valiantly, but they were being overwhelmed by sheer numbers. "Why?" Patel asked, taking a step closer to the core. "Why seek our extinction? We could have coexisted." "Impossible. Your individuality is chaos, unpredictable, dangerous." The Regent's many limbs gestured to the holographic display, which now showed the entire war in a compressed timeline. Every battle, every atrocity committed by both sides. You attack when threatened. You destroy what you fear. You divide what should be united. We also create. We change. We evolve, Patel countered, slowly, working her way around the Regent toward the crystal. Individual minds connected by choice, not by compulsion, can achieve things a single consciousness cannot imagine. A theory, unproven. The Regent moved to block her path to the core. You carry our destruction in those containers. We sense it. One contains destruction, Patel admitted. The other contains transformation, a chance for something new, a Valari consciousness that embraces individuality while maintaining connection. The Regent's antennae quivered. Impossible. The collective cannot survive fragmentation. Not fragmentation. Evolution. Patel set down both containment cases, her hand hovering between them. Your species has adapted to countless challenges throughout its history. Why not adapt to coexistence with individual beings? For a moment, the Regent seemed to consider her words. Then, the chamber shuddered violently as an explosion rocked the section of the ring. The holographic display showed the Defiant had struck a critical power node, temporarily disrupting the ring's energy distribution. Time ends for discussion, the Regent declared, suddenly lunging toward Patel with alarming speed. The collective must survive. Humanity must not. Patel dove aside, narrowly avoiding the Regent's slashing limbs. She rolled across the floor, grabbing one of the containment cases as she came up. There was no time to check which one she'd taken. The Regent was already turning for another attack. With desperate strength, she hurled the case at the crystal core. It shattered against the crystalline surface, releasing a cloud of microscopic particles that quickly spread throughout the neural network. The Regent froze in mid-attack, its limbs contorting as the bioagent took effect. Throughout the chamber, all Valari suddenly stopped moving. Jackson, bleeding from multiple wounds, lowered his weapon in confusion as the drones that had been about to overwhelm him simply stood motionless. Inside the barrier, Patel watched as the Regent convulsed, chittering in a frequency too high for her translator to process. The crystal core pulsed with erratic patterns of light, its color shifting from blue to purple to a deep crimson. "What have you done?" the Regent managed to articulate, its voice distorted and fragmented. "What is happening to us?" Patel checked the remaining containment case and realized she had deployed the transformative agent rather than the lethal one. "I've given your species a chance to evolve," she said. "The bioagent is rewriting the connections in your neural network, introducing variability where there was only uniformity. Each Valari will retain a connection to the collective, but will also develop individual consciousness." "It burns," the Regent hissed, collapsing to the floor as its exoskeleton began to crack and reform. Millions of voices, all speaking at once, no longer in harmony. The energy barrier flickered and died as the Regent lost control of its systems. Patel rushed to the nearest communication panel, interfacing her suit systems with the Valari technology. "This is Dr. Anya Patel to all human forces." She broadcast, "The bioagent has been deployed. I repeat, the transformative bioagent has been deployed. Cease fire immediately. The Valari are undergoing a fundamental change in their neural structure." Outside the ring, in the damaged Defiance Command Center, Captain Reeves received the transmission with disbelief. "Transformative? She was supposed to kill them." His tactical officer looked up from her console. "Sir, Valari ships are going inert across the battlefield. They've stopped firing. On the horizon, Admiral Thorne, having relocated to auxiliary control after the bridge was destroyed, made a swift decision. All ships, cease fire, hold positions and maintain defensive posture only." The human fleet, battered and reduced to less than half its original strength, complied. An uneasy silence fell across the battlefield as the Valari forces remained motionless, caught in the midst of their collective transformation. In the life core chamber, Patel watched as the Regent slowly rose to its feet, moving with an awkward, halting gait, unlike its previous fluid motion. The crystal core had stabilized, now pulsing with a steady amber light. "What? Am I? The regent asked, its voice now strangely singular, rather than the multi-tone chorus it had been before. You are still the regent, Patel replied. But now you are also an individual, as are all Volari. You remain connected, but each of you will develop your own thoughts, your own perspectives. It is painful, confusing. The regent's compound eyes seemed to focus on Patel with new intensity. Yet, there is something interesting in this separation. Commander Jackson, having fought his way to the core during the Volari's incapacitation, arrived at Patel's side, his weapon still raised cautiously. Doctor, are you all right? What's happening? A rebirth, Patel said quietly. The Volari Collective is becoming a community of individuals. Throughout the Dyson Ring and across Volari space, a species was experiencing something entirely new. The emergence of individual consciousness within a framework of collective connection. Some embraced the change immediately. Others resisted it desperately, but none could escape the fundamental transformation that had begun. As the transformative agent completed its work, the regent approached Patel and Jackson, its movements becoming more coordinated as it adapted to its new state. You could have destroyed us, it said, a note of wonder in its translated voice. Instead, you have changed us. This was not anticipated. Destruction is easy, Patel replied. Coexistence is harder, but ultimately more valuable. The regent extended one of its upper limbs in what appeared to be a gesture of peace. The war between our species is concluded. What follows will be unprecedented. Admiral Thorne, watching through the communication feed that Patel had established, felt a weight lift from her shoulders, even as the burden of reconstruction settled in its place. The war was over. Humanity had survived. And perhaps, in choosing transformation over extinction for their enemy, they had preserved something of their own humanity as well. 6 months after what became known as the Dyson Ring confrontation, Admiral Mira Thorne stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed diplomatic station orbiting neutral space between human and Volari territory. The station, named Transformation, served as the primary point of contact between the two species as they navigated their new relationship. The horizon, too damaged to be fully repaired, had been permanently decommissioned. Its salvageable sections were incorporated into the station as a memorial to those who had fallen in the conflict. Thorne sometimes found herself walking the preserved corridors, remembering faces and voices now silent. "Admiral," a voice called from behind her. "The Volari delegation has arrived." Thorne turned to see Lieutenant Silva, recently promoted despite her youth in recognition of her contributions to the war effort. "Thank you, Lieutenant. Is Dr. Patel with them?" "Yes, ma'am. She's been serving as interpreter. The Volari still struggle with some aspects of human communication." Thorne nodded and made her way to the conference room, where representatives from Earth and the former Volari Collective waited. The sight that greeted her still required a conscious effort not to reach for a weapon. 5 Volari, including the regent, standing among humans without hostile intent. Dr. Patel was engaged in conversation with the regent, her hands moving animatedly as she explained some human concept. The xenobiologist had spent most of the past 6 months in Volari space, studying the effects of the transformation and helping both species understand each other. "Admiral Thorne," the regent said as she entered, its English much improved though still carrying the distinctive clicking undertones of its native speech. "Your presence honors us." "Regent Isathal," Thorne replied, using the individual name the Volari leader had chosen for itself. "The honor is mutual." The formal diplomatic session that followed was largely ceremonial. Most of the actual negotiation had been conducted by specialized teams over the preceding months. A peace treaty had been drafted, outlining territorial boundaries, reparations for war damages, and frameworks for scientific and cultural exchange. After the public portion concluded, Thorne found herself alone with Dr. Patel and the Regent in a smaller conference room. "The treaty will be ratified by Earth's Council," Thorne assured them, "though there are still voices calling for more punitive measures." "As there are among the Volari who resist individuation," the Regent replied. "Change is never universal, nor immediate." "How is the transition progressing?" Thorne asked, genuinely curious. The fate of the Volari had become something of a personal concern for her since the war's end. "Unevenly," the Regent admitted. "Many embrace their new existence with enthusiasm. Others struggle. Some have rejected it entirely, retreating to isolated enclaves where they attempt to maintain the old collective consciousness." "That was expected," Patel said. "The bioagent was designed to permit choice. Forcing individuality on all Volari would have been its own form of tyranny." Thorne noted how the xenobiologist had changed over the course of the war and its aftermath. The idealistic scientist remained, but tempered now with a pragmatism born of difficult choices. They had all been transformed by the conflict, humans and Volari alike. "There is something we wish to discuss privately," the Regent said, its compound eyes focusing on Thorne. "Concerning the occupied Volari worlds. Following the war, human forces had claimed several Volari colony systems as buffer zones between the two territories. Millions of transformed Volari remained on these worlds under human administration, a situation that both sides recognized as temporary but politically delicate. "We're prepared to formally cede these systems to human control," the Regent continued, "with two conditions: that the Volari inhabitants be permitted either safe passage to our remaining territory or full rights if they choose to remain under human governance." Thorne was surprised by the offer. The disputed colonies had been expected to be a point of contention for years. "That's quite generous. Regent, may I ask why?" "The old collective would have demanded their return, seeing them as extensions of itself," the Regent explained. "But we now recognize that these worlds' inhabitants must determine their own fate. Some wish to rejoin Volari society. Others have developed connections to their new human neighbors. Forcing either group to abandon their choice would contradict what we are becoming." "I believe the Council will accept these terms," Thorne said after considering the proposal. "It aligns with our own values of self-determination." As the meeting concluded, and they prepared to return to the main diplomatic gathering, Patel drew Thorne aside. "I never properly thanked you," the xenobiologist said quietly. "For what?" Thorne asked. "For trusting my judgment at the Life Core, for allowing me to make the choice between destruction and transformation." Patel's eyes reflected the weight of that moment. "I wasn't certain until the very last second which bioagent I would use." "What decided you?" Thorne asked, curious about the turning point that had shaped the future of two species. Patel considered the question carefully. "When the Regent spoke to me, really spoke, not just issued threats, I saw something familiar beneath the alienness, a consciousness capable of change, of growth." She smiled slightly. "Much like our own." Thorne nodded, understanding. In the darkest moments of the war, she had sometimes wondered if humanity deserved to survive, if their willingness to commit atrocities in the name of survival had rendered them unworthy of it. But the choice to offer transformation rather than extinction to an enemy bent on their destruction suggested an essential humanity remained intact. "Captain Reeves declined his invitation to this summit," Thorne noted, changing the subject. "He's requested reassignment to the outer colonies." "I'm not surprised," Patel replied. "He lost too much to the Volari. Some wounds don't heal just because peace is declared." Thorne understood this all too well. The war had left scars on every survivor, some visible, others buried deep. The galaxy they now inhabited was fundamentally changed. Two species that had nearly annihilated each other, now cautiously exploring coexistence. Later, as the diplomatic summit concluded, Thorne found herself once again on the observation deck, gazing out at the stars. The Volari delegation was departing, their living ship pulsing with the bioluminescence characteristic of their technology. "You chose war with humanity," she murmured, recalling the ultimatum that had begun the conflict. "And we all nearly paid the ultimate price." "Admiral," Silva had approached quietly, carrying a data tablet. "The final casualty reports you requested." Thorne accepted the tablet, though she almost knew the figures by heart already. Millions dead on both sides. Colonies reduced to radioactive ash. Atrocities committed in the name of survival. The cost had been staggering. "Was it worth it?" Silva asked hesitantly. "Not the war. That was forced on us. But the peace. The way we ended it. Some say we should have eradicated them when we had the chance." Thorne considered the question seriously, owing the young officer her honest assessment. "In war, Lieutenant, there are two possible victories. You can destroy your enemy so completely that they no longer exist to threaten you." She gestured toward the departing Volari vessel. "Or you can transform the relationship so fundamentally that they cease to be your enemy at all. The first victory ends a war. The second prevents the next one." She returned her gaze to the stars, where human and Volari ships now moved along their separate but parallel courses. "We chose the harder path. Whether it was worth it?" Thorne's expression softened slightly. "Ask me in 100 years." As the Volari ship engaged its FTL drive and disappeared into the depths of space, Thorne reflected on the ultimatum that had started everything. "You chose war with humanity. Good luck surviving." The Volari had indeed survived, though not as they had been. And so had humanity, changed, scarred, but perhaps wiser for the experience. The war was over. The work of peace, the harder, more enduring work, had just begun.